So, Vic Norman, you had an amazing life with planes, with cars, with bikes and all sorts. And now you've written this fantastic book, amazing illustrations, and I'm told absolutely fascinating to read. Tell us about it, please.
Well, yeah, I never considered myself to be someone that could write a book. And I suppose the amazing life probably only came about because I've actually never really had a job. So I've sort of managed to get by doing stuff and scraping by and earning a living on my way. And I've been incredibly lucky because I've followed my passion. You know, I followed my passion, and my passion, I think the book says that from a very young age, started with my dad. My dad was an absent father, but when he did turn up, I couldn't wait to see him because he always turned up with exciting things as a little sort of 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old. And he'd turn up with a new car, a Ferrari. I remember him getting his first Ferrari in 1956. And I was 9 years old then, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it had a 300, I thought, a 300 mile an hour speedo. And my dad didn't say otherwise. Of course, it was 300 kilometers an hour. And of course, he taught me how to start it, how to warm it up in the morning, not to flood the carburetor. So he'd send me out. He'd say, I'm going in 5 minutes time, go and start the car. Give me the keys. And I had to start it, not flood it, warm it up, certain revs. And, you know, it was just second heaven. I just loved it. And that's really what gave me the bug for all this mechanical stuff. And, you know, how lucky I've been. I've managed to lead my life really around mechanical stuff. And I think probably the big change was in 1972 when I was in Alan de Cadenay's team at Le Mans with the Duckens Ford. And of course, Alan, who's a great friend, also had no money, and, you know, everything was done on a shoestring, and we had no passes, and we were also young and mucking about, and, you know, it was just fantastic times. It couldn't happen nowadays. And that's when that's really when I got into older cars. And from that, I got into racing some of the old cars. And I bought the DType, and I didn't really know much about the history, but I knew it had a famous number on it. It had MWS 302, which of course was one of the Kuryakov's cars. And we rebuilt that car, and I raced it a bit and had fun with it. My wife and I used to drive it to the race meetings. We took it to Zandvoort, you know, we'd get soaking wet, but, you know, it didn't matter. It was just great fun. And the first historic race at Le Mans we did with it, and, you know, it was just really good fun. And then I remember being in the paddock at Silverstone. And luckily enough, Neil Corner, who had a fantastic collection of racing cars, all the best stuff, and a fantastic driver. His best chum, of course, was Patrick Lindsay. And Patrick had, as you know, everything. He had cars, planes, boats, whatever, you know, every form of mechanical machine. Neil had his 250F there. 1957 Works lightweight car, 2528, which Fangio won Monaco in. And then next to it was 2527, which had had a pretty hard life, I have to say. For a while, Linus Ireland owned it. Crossweight and Gardner rebuilt it, but it looked fantastic, and it was in the paddock. And I went into the motorhome, because in those days, Neil was the only person at vintage meetings that had a motorhome. Most of us just went with a trailer and a tow car. And I sat down, and Neil knew the one car I could never afford, but always wanted, was a 250F single-seater Grand Prix car. And so I was set up, really, but in a most lovely way. So Neil said, well, why don't you go out and have a sit in Patrick's car? I said, oh, yeah, I'd like that. So I'm in the car, you know, I'm already driving it round the Nürburgring, just about to overtake Hawthorne and Collins. And he said, "Oh, come in, come in." He said, "Do you want that car?" I said, "Well, of course I want it, but I've got no money." He said, "Well, Patrick's just coming in. I know he likes your D-Type." He said, "Why don't you just do a swap?" So I said, "Well, yeah, that's good," because I really wanted the 250F. So Patrick came in and we sat down and he said, "Look, do you want the 250F?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, what's the deal?" I said, "I haven't any money," because I never had any money. If I had money, I'd go and buy something, motorbike or something. Never had any money in the bank, and I still don't. And he said, "Well, let's just swap." So I said, "Great, let's just swap." And so we, on a bit of paper, we just said we swap cars, and that was it. So it's all stories like that in the book, really. And I've been so lucky to be involved with all this mechanical stuff. Just a magic, really, with no idea and no thought about ever writing anything. So yeah, and the idea of writing a book, I tried writing it actually, and my writing's so bad. I was on holiday, and the whole purpose was just to do some notes to my grandchildren. And then lockdown came, which has been magic in some ways, not work-wise, but magic for me actually otherwise, because then I thought, you know what, I'm going to spend a couple of hours every day and I'm going to write that. I'm going to write those notes for the grandchildren. And it just started flowing, and it was just snippets. I would just, the way I would talk it through, and I would write it the way I was talking it through. And I would just, stories would suddenly come into my head. And the truth of the matter is the book, although it's an autobiography, it's snippets. I mean, it's 10%, it's less than 10% really of what's happened. I kept thinking of other things, but after I'd written about 85,000 words, I thought, you know what? I don't want to be a writer. I'm not a writer. I've had enough of this. But I'm absolutely thrilled that I've done it for no purpose other than the fact I think it's nice for the family to have something like that.
Well, we're very proud to be publishing it, Vic. It's a terrific book. It's a great story. You've clearly had an extremely boring life. Very but no, what a wonderful life, and great, and a great example to people as well. Life is what you make it. So it's a great book. It's terrific. Really looking forward to it, and great to work with you.
Well, thank you very much, because you've made it happen, Philip, and given the trust in me and decided to run with it. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very lucky that Porter Press have decided to do that on my book. And that's going to make it, it's going to look good anyway. And the pictures are nice.
Well, I'm sure it's going to read extremely well. I haven't yet had a chance, unfortunately, alas, but I'm looking forward to reading it very much, because all the reports I've had from our editor, James Page, etc., is it's a super read. So terrific. Great to talk to you, Vic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip.